Last week, I've helped my friends over at ScootX to shoot some content, and I wanted to do a quick test with my latest smartphones, the Huawei Mate 30 Pro and the Sony Xperia 5, to see how close they come to professional cameras with their stock video camera app. In the next videos, we'll go one step further and attach some lenses to the phones. But for now, let's check out if nowadays smartphones can really be used as a backup or main shooter when shooting some videos, and check out how good the video quality of the Mate 30 Pro and the Sony Xperia 5 really is. So we have been shooting a few clips, and here is one in full HD shot on the Sony A7 Mark III, which unfortunately got stolen from me a month ago. That's why I asked myself, what if some shots are missing? Would one of the phones be able to work as a backup camera? In this video we'll focus on the video performance out of the box with no additional apps like Filmic Pro. Some 4K cinematic tests will be live on the weekend, so stay tuned. But now, let's compare some of the shots from this video with shots from the smartphones. So when I'm filming, I'm mostly filming in high frame rate, so this shot is from the Sony A7 in 120 FPS, and as you can see, nice and sharp, great DOF, and yeah, it's just looking beautiful. But when I had a look at the slow motion from the Huawei Mate 30 Pro, I was like, what kind of magic do they use here? I mean, look at all the tiny stones and all the detail in this shot. This is absolutely crazy. And we all know that the Huawei Mate 30 has some really sick slow motion performance, but I never believed it until I've seen it with my own eyes. And this shot is not from a professional camera, this is from a smartphone. Actually, Sony has pretty much invented the high frame rate on a smartphone by bringing out their super slow motion. But on the Sony Xperia 5, as you can see right over here, it's not looking good because the phone is only capable of 120 FPS. Now I'm a little bit sad because this phone is still quite expensive, around $800, and it should feature the same feature as the Sony Xperia 1 because the Sony Xperia 1 comes with 960 FPS slow motion. But well, this phone not. So you're stuck here with 120 FPS, but also the 120 FPS don't look really good as there's a lot of noise in the shot. But well, that's regarding slow motion. Now let's switch to some regular shots. So here we have a beautiful shot where Martin is riding down the road in the city of Vienna, great lighting, and the A7 III has great dynamic range, so as you can see, no clipping in the highlights, it looks just really beautiful. But now how does it look on the Mate? Now if you look at the road, then you can see that the Mate tries to raise the shadows, get the exposure right, but then struggles a bit with highlight clipping if you check out the buildings in the background, so this is a bit overexposed. Now if you check this out on the Xperia, you can see road is looking pretty good, but also the buildings in the background. There's just a bit of highlight clipping on both phones, but I think the Sony Xperia 5 is doing here better on this regular and pretty tricky lighting condition shot. If you check out the comparison here, then you can see that somehow the exposure it's a bit darker on the Sony Xperia, but from my point of view it's just looking better. You probably already noticed it before that both phones display colors totally different. We had this nice reveal shot where we opened up the trunk of a car and showed the scooter, and if you check this out on the Mate, you can see the scooter is saturated with a really strong blue, actually more than in reality. If you check this out on the Xperia, you can see it's a lighter blue but also a wrong color. So it looks a little bit more like on my Sony A7 but still not true to life. Now you need to choose. If you buy a Huawei phone, they have very strong color tones, very saturated, that pop out of your screen, and Sony Xperias have a little bit more flat profiles which you can still color grade, but also here you have to do color correction because as you can see the scooter doesn't really look like it looks in reality. Regarding autofocus, I had absolutely no issues on both of the phones, so both phones have an extremely fast and accurate autofocus. We did another reveal shot here from the sign, and then Martin was driving around the corner with his scooter. This was filmed on the Sony A7 in 120 FPS, and now let's check it out on the phones. If you check this shot out on the Huawei Mate 30, then you can see that there is a lot of sharpening going on, very rough edges, also a lot of contrast and a little bit highlight clipping. On the Sony Xperia we have a flat profile, a little bit weird skin tones though, a little bit weird colors as well, but it looks more flat and then you can color grade it better than on the Huawei. So it really comes down to personal preference, but as a filmmaker I sometimes really like the Sony more, but also sometimes the Huawei is just fine straight out of the box. I will now show you some samples side by side and I want your opinion down below in the comments, because you know, always when you do such reviews, such comparisons, there's a lot of personal preference inside, and I really want to know from you guys from the community, what phone would you pick? Write it now down below in the comments and let me know.
I once felt I'm done with the defense. Drove back and climbed over your fence. Had to show you that I was a mess. So you were shrugging your shoulders and closed off. That's what I told you. Soon enough, everything started to change. 'Cause there's no going back, no going back. There's no going back to your old life. Not living in the past, we're over that. I'm feeling it tonight, riding on the dizzying heights. Riding on the dizzying heights. Like nothing could stop us. Sunsets, remember the colors. They were wrong, it was way more than a dream. We climbed up, yeah, over the hillside. So right, we stood there all wide-eyed. You and I floated on air in my mind. 'Cause there's no going back, no going back. There's no going back to your old life. Not living in the past, we're over that. I'm feeling it tonight, riding on the dizzying heights.
So overall, it was a quite interesting test for me. Here are some things I learned during this test. Now first of all, 4K HDR on the Sony sounds to me more than a marketing feature than an actual feature. Don't get me wrong, I love Sony cameras, and if I shoot in HDR with a professional camera, there's a big difference in dynamic range, as smartphones for sure don't have the same big sensors and processing power. HDR protects the highlights way more and you do get less highlight clipping than on the Mate, but also the shadows are quite dark and not like I would like to see it on HDR even after processing it on the PC. It's a nice feature to have though, but check it out first before you may get disappointed. The only phone which I've seen which has really good HDR recording is the iPhone 11, to be honest. But I think in the future we'll see huge improvements. Also, I often shoot handheld, so I need a good stabilization. And to be honest, even though the 26 and the 52mm lens on the Xperia 5 have hybrid OIS and EIS video stabilization, which was turned on in this test, it's not performing that well on the phone. The Mate has some aggressive added AIS smart anti-shake, but it's working good handheld. If you shoot on the Xperia, I would really recommend the gimbal. The Xperia also has a nice built-in Cinema Pro app for professionals, but also with the regular camera app, there is an overheat warning after you shoot longer clips and it just stops recording. It didn't feel much warmer than the Mate, so I guess it's some software overprotection going on. But this is really quite annoying, as I always need to worry that my shot gets interrupted because of this protection. Sony really needs to fix that. Also, it doesn't matter which phone it is, but I really love 4K 60 as it gives you the ability to slow things down in post, which I do quite often if you watch my videos. I really wish Sony would have integrated 4K 60 on the Xperia 5, but maybe next time. So let me know down below in the comments what's your favorite phone for shooting video. To be really honest with you guys, just for video, for this only purpose. I think about getting an iPhone in December, but well, I'm still waiting for the perfect phone for 4K recording, and I think there will be big changes in the next years when I look on how Huawei has evolved in the last years, so stay tuned. So also stay tuned for the next cinematic camera review where we'll attach real camera lenses to the phones, dropping on Monday, and this is going to be amazing. Alright guys, so big thanks for watching. As always guys, I'm Steven from Tech Magnet and I will catch you in the next one. Have a nice day and bye.